You're listening to The Authenticity Show, where you get to eavesdrop on great conversations about health, creativity, and the quest for excellence. Your hosts are Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to The Authenticity Show wherever you get your podcasts and find us on social media. That means like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and check out our YouTube page. This episode is a casual philosophical conversation about many things, including ties as an evil, sadistic fashion accessory, the values of fresh citrus in a cocktail, the simple pleasure of experiencing things the way they are, whether or not animals have compassion, Satch's idea of preserving proximal life, and Star Trek. Enjoy.
Good evening, Satch.
Good evening, Carlos. You know, you look dapper. I just want to point out that the camera's not going to see this, but your socks match your shirt.
Well, we could make that happen.
We could, if somebody's flexible enough. Yeah, look at that. See
those polka dots?
There's a matching thing going on here. Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to say that, you know, as they say, that sometimes the carpet matches the drapes. Well, my underwear matches my socks.
Really? Wow.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
I have this weird personal share here. I have a tendency to match my underwear with my socks.
Okay. So this is something that you do.
It is something I do.
Now, we decided that
It's
for
like
this
an OCD thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know.
So it's like
I just tend to do it. Yeah.
So what happens if you don't match them?
I always feel like they are. I just have to do some kind of a variant. Like let's say, let's get into the detail here. If it doesn't match the socks, it'll match the shirt, or if I can't find that, I'll do some kind of like a powerful contrast color or something, like to kind of like a flashing color or a complementary color.
Okay.
Why we're talking about that, I have no idea.
Okay.
But I think because we mentioned the socks. But yeah, I just have a tendency to. It's like my brain wants to organize that way.
That's interesting.
So I pick things that match.
If you ever show up with like sandals and no socks, does that mean you're not wearing underwear?
There's a possibility that
you could be freeballing
it.
Yeah,
it could be. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Very good.
Because I mean, if you think about it, when I go to the beach, I'm wearing a bathing suit, and you're not wearing underwear when you're wearing a bathing suit, and that's when I would wear my flip flops.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So it's like a built-in thing that you do.
It kind of is. Yeah.
You know, you have always, at least in my opinion, you've always had a little bit of a flair for dressing well. You have a tendency to make choices, you know, of things going together and thinking about that. Is that because you grew up with a bunch of sisters?
Okay, that's part of it.
Okay.
You know, I was the youngest of 6, and I think my older sisters had a tendency to, you know, dote, which was nice because I'm a very affectionate kid. I'm still a very affectionate person.
You're still a kid.
I'm still a kid inside. And I love my sisters very much, and so I always wanted to be hanging out with them and cuddling with them and talking with them, and they would teach me songs, and we would do dress up and all that kind of stuff as kids.
Sure,
I was probably like a glorified dolly in a way, because although they were quite a bit older than I am, but it was fun. So I think that might be part of it. The other thing is that my father was very into grooming and his appearance. He always was, even as an older, in his 80s, he was still very much all about taking his time to shave, and you know, he was very, very into that personal appearance kind of thing. Yeah. And then the other element of that was James Bond.
Oh,
you know, he was dapper, he was debonnaire,
he was.
You know, and characters like that, like Mr. West from the Wild Wild West. You know, all of them. There's a certain style, right?
Yeah.
I think that was one of the several archetypes that I gravitated towards as a kid. That, you know, kind of quote unquote heroes. So these characters had a quality of dressing well.
Yeah.
And even though I might not necessarily be the most GQ dressing well person that I know or that you know, but it is an is an element of who I am. I tend to like to wear a nice shirt and nice shoes and if my lifestyle were maybe just a tiny bit different, I probably would wear a nice, suit, no tie.
No tie.
That's where my pet peeve. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I have a pet peeve.
Yeah, I do
around
too.
ties. Ties feel like slavery to
I
me.
can't stand ties.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I hate ties is because of what they symbolize.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't know the story of ties, I'm going to tell the history of ties.
Yeah, this is a good one.
So, once upon a time, in the days of old, the wealthy aristocracy would get together and have these fancy dinners. And it was customary to bring your own napkin because they didn't have like disposable paper napkins like we do today. So you brought a napkin to wipe your mouth. Well, people started bringing nicer and nicer napkins. It was a sign of status. And then people started showing up to dinner with the napkin already on their body.
Yeah, like a bib.
Yeah, like a bib. And then it got to the point where the napkin was so nice that they would bring a secondary napkin to actually wipe their mouth with, and that was the beginning of a tie.
Yeah.
Now you look at it today, and it is something that is the last thing on your body that you want to get food on. Yet it started off as a glorified napkin.
Yes. And I don't remember what comedian said this, but there was something to the effect of like wearing a tie was like having a really weak or anemic person, like a little midget trying to choke you all day long, but not having quite enough strength to do it.
Yeah.
It's like this, I envision this sort of annoying, person trying to choke you all day,
Yeah.
but doesn't have enough strength to actually accomplish it.
Yeah, yeah. That's ties.
It's a bit like a noose as well.
It is. It's a noose. It's literally a slip
nuisance.
knot. Yeah, yeah. Let's actually tie a rope around our neck and then go to work. It just bothers me. Just fundamentally, I feel like a sucker. Like the invisible man's got me on a leash.
It feels the same way for me. I mean, why on earth would you have something slightly, cutting off your jugular all day?
Right.
Why? Why would you want pressure on that part of your neck all day long?
Yeah.
It just seems
It does tend
ridiculous.
to give me a rash on the side of my neck too. If I've been wearing a tie all the time,
I get a rash just thinking about it.
I know it's terrible. It's terrible.
And they, I think there are a few things that, having led the unconventional lifestyle that I've chosen, that irritate me about it. It could be just a personal association, but I think there may be some justification behind it. The idea of, we think of like the modern businessman, wearing the tie and getting up at 4:30 and having to be at work, by 7:30 and, blah, blah, blah. And early bird gets the worm and you're not productive unless you're up early and you're basically lazy if you're a late riser and a late owl or something.
Yeah.
And then coming along with that is you must wear your tie, even if you're getting paid diddly squat for what you do, and nobody else cares except your boss, your boss hole. Why the hell are you wearing the tie?
Yeah.
It's as if it conveys some kind of professionalism to it. And I understand appearance matters. It's an external way people judge you, but why do we take it to such extremes? Like I said, I love a nice, comfortable, like well-tailored suit that's fitted the right way and looks good on you, and a nice, button-down shirt. But that's the extent of it. I mean, I want to wear nice shoes, nice slacks, nice belt, the suit and everything. Great. But keep the tie away from me.
Yeah.
Even though there, admittedly there's some creativity to colors and patterns and things like that, but I don't know, I just feel silly. I've got this huge box of ties that I never wear.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a bunch of ties, and I do wear them because
It's required,
of
right?
work. Yeah, it's a requirement, and I try to get away without doing it as often as I'm allowed to. Right. If there's a day where I don't have to wear a tie, like a Friday, you will not see me in a tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just the one piece of attire on males that I think it's the one that really does not serve any purpose at all.
Right.
somebody might argue, well, yeah, but it's a sign of status. I'm like, yeah, but it has no functional purpose on your outfit.
Yeah. Its function is to get stuck in things.
Yeah, yeah, and
choke you to death.
Here's the other thing. I think another reason why I don't like ties is because I'm an acupuncturist. And what's the one thing you don't want getting in the way when you're putting needles in somebody? Right, is a piece of fabric dangling and touching needles.
Right.
It just it's a liability.
Yeah, it is.
But we're having this discussion. We started this discussion talking about clothing, right? And we started to get into our little pet peeves, and we share one, which is ties. And this is an episode when we have decided we are just going to pick each other's brains on whatever topics,
pickings.
Yeah, whatever we feel like. And I think we're going to pick some winners tonight. I do think we're going to do that. So there is a fund of knowledge, and there is a style that you have in the world, and I'm going to ask you questions about these things and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. So now we have established that we don't like ties. Right? We don't like ties. What else? Well, let me ask you this. What is an everyday thing that brings you a lot of joy?
An everyday thing, as opposed to like a person. So like an everyday thing.
Like an everyday, something that you do, or an everyday object, or just something that's part of a person's daily life that is something that you take joy in.
Well, cooking.
Oh yeah,
Cooking is something that brings me joy. It's a little bit about the fact that I enjoy cooking, but it's a lot about the fact that I like sharing the cooking with someone. So if I have somebody to cook for, that makes all the difference for me.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go the extra mile. I feel more focused on it. I don't feel like I need to rush it. I mean, if I'm by myself, almost embarrassed to admit it, but like, I'd be happy just sort of sit in front of the sink with a bowl of cereal or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds pathetic, but I get so much out of sharing.
Oh, okay.
And delighting someone else's taste buds. Delighting someone else's taste buds. Is where it's at. Because then I get the excitement, the mutual excitement, the shared joy, all that. That's a big deal.
Now, by the way, for anybody who's never tasted Carlos's cooking, which is a lot of people in the world, it's really good. This guy can cook. He knows his way around the kitchen. Like seriously, like everybody who eats your cooking is going to take a double take the first time they take a bite. They're going to go, oh wow, oh my goodness, like this is pretty good. So little funny thing. Now here is how you know Carlos has been in your kitchen. You look in the sink and there are a bunch of various squeezed citrus fruits that are still in the bottom of the sink. This is a beautiful phenomenon. I was looking like, Carlos was here because there's limes and grapefruits, and which happened last night.
That's right.
Because you and Seamus came and celebrated my birthday.
That's right.
And we had a great time. And
we made cocktails.
We did, and I saw all these citruses in the sink, and I thought, how many times have I seen this? Every time Carlos has been making drinks, and it's just kind of a cool little signature.
That is the secret, in my opinion, for making drinks, whether they're alcoholic or non-alcoholic, taste fabulous. Is just fresh citrus.
Yeah. You showed up with grapefruit and everything.
Yeah. I mean, grapefruits, limes, lemons, oranges. All that, because you really can't substitute that fresh flavor very well. Even when you get like let's say you got the grapefruit soda that we had. The Italian grapefruit soda that we were using, we added some cucumber lime flavored vodka to it, and over ice, and we squeezed some fresh citrus in there, and that just makes the flavors pop. Like it awakens your taste buds. And I notice, like, even if I go to a bar and I order a gin and tonic, most people just kind of slavishly make their gin and tonics, and then they shove them in front of you, and it's really nothing to scream about. So I always just, no matter where I'm at, I always tell them extra lime.
Okay.
Because
that's a good idea.
Even if it's like not top shelf kind of a gin or whatever it is, it makes it really stand out. And then the strong lime flavor kind of balances with the gin flavor, and it just makes it refreshing, kind of just rolls over your tongue so much better. Big deal.
So an everyday thing that you love is cooking. and it's about sharing, bringing joy to the people that you're spending time with. And your super duper secret is to add lots of citrus to your drinks.
Yes.
All right, let's cash that in. 100%. I like it. I like that. That's great.
How about you? What brings you joy?
Sort of like an everyday event that brings me joy. Well, okay. There's lots of them. And I would say that I have probably spent a good portion of my life choosing to actually take joy and pleasure from everyday nonsense kinds of things anyway. That's just kind of who I've been. And I'll get to my answer here in a second. But I remember being a kid and somebody would say something a certain way. Or I would see maybe a gardener outside sweeping something up and using the dustpan, or just any little thing like that. And I would go into this mode where I would watch the person, or I would experience what the person just did, and I would get this warm glow inside me that would just feel great. And it's something that has always been in me. It's like a part of my quest in life is to figure that out or expand that somehow and bring more of that into my experience, where I feel this great joy just watching something that seems like nothing. Like I remember one time outside of a college that I was teaching at, I was watching the janitorial staff. And there was this young Hispanic girl who was putting a trash bag in a big trash can.
Bin liner.
Yeah, and I had this feeling of happiness watching her do her work. Just the sound of the bag opening and just the way she was putting it in, and I had this warm glow in my chest.
Like ASMR kind of thing?
It's a little different. It's a little kind of like that, but it's more of this internal experience of somebody doing something authentic for them. So anyway, it could happen, and I would love to be able to create it, and I've never have been able to do that. It just spontaneously happens, and I never know when it's going to occur. And when it does, I love it. Right?
Cool.
But one of the things in my life that is an everyday thing that I probably get a lot of that same experience from is experiencing animals. I love pets. It might be a sparrow. It might be my own pets, It might be a little ant crawling like he's lost on a wall. Like, how did you get there? You know what I mean? I always take a moment and acknowledge the other life forms that are around me and just appreciate them. And there's something about that has just always given me a lot of joy. It sort of makes life magical,
I could have predicted that. I was thinking that you'd mentioned that. And it makes sense because you're surrounded by them at home.
I am.
And it's great. When I come over, I feel like I want to dive into the pet pool and just be, submerged in your petness. Percy, your dog Percy, I was talking about it last night, how she comes up and she wants to get closer, then I'll go for her and she kind of turns away.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because maybe she's nervous or whatever it is, but it's so cute because she's got that thick, warm body and she's just really squeezeable.
Yeah,
she's really huggable. I just want to hang out with her and cuddle, because she's just like this big, thick, warm, they sweet thing,
They just make life, it's sort of like life is a very interesting, nicely baked cake, but they are the icing and all the extra things that go on the cake, just animals. And I've always loved that. Remember, I was in China and I was with a friend who doesn't dislike animals, but is not an animal lover like me. And her and I had decided to go down this little side alley and get away from like the main place that we were at where all the tourists are. And like we went into this little alley in China. And she said, she saw something and she knew I was going to like it. So she had to point it out. She goes, and I turn and somebody had this big cardboard box lid filled with baby chickens, baby chicks.
Wow.
And all these little school children were standing around the little baby chickens.
Yeah.
And me and a bunch of school kids. And I just went, oh, and I stuck my hands into the box and I just picked up a bunch of baby chicks and I was just like, oh, and they were jumping off my hands and I had one. And I remember she got a picture of me holding a baby chick.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm sure they all got eaten, but
I'm sure.
But still, That's so. Here's my next question for you then. Speaking of little chickens getting eaten, this is a probably a heavier topic. Okay, I think most people would agree that there is a time when it's appropriate to take a life. There's a time when it's appropriate to kill. Yet, oftentimes, it's very inappropriate to take a life. And I want to get your own thoughts and experiences around this topic of how does a person know when it is acceptable to take a life and when it isn't.
I really like the way you put it. I don't even know if that was what episode that was really early on. The whole idea of protecting proximal life. That to me fits perfectly into the martial traditions and the Buddhist traditions that we were raised with Kung Fu.
Totally.
I just think that's really the key. It's relative. So we live relative to everything else around us. So there has to be a relative answer. It's not always the same. Obviously, if someone intruded in my house, I would try my best not to have to kill them. But if I felt that my life were truly in danger, basically it's them before me, because that's proximal to me.
Yeah.
My life is proximal to me. And it's the same if I were at a friend's place or anyone else that I cared about. That person who's under my care, they come first. So there's a hierarchy to it. It's not that I ultimately would wish that person who came in and intruded, I wouldn't want to wish them unwell, but if it's required in order to survive or to have the people that I care about survive, then sad as it is, I would just have to choose to end their life. I think it gets strange, like we were raised with movies, spy movies and stories of assassins and things like that. People are getting paid to do that, and you could get in your head and try to justify yourself that everybody's done this question, right? If you could go back in time and you could kill Adolf Hitler, would you do it?
Yeah,
it's an interesting question, but
it is. Yeah,
we don't have that ability, so it's kind of I don't know. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's like asking yourself how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It's really not that useful, really, at the end of the day. But if you could also do the same thing with current people. You could say, all right, well, if you could figure out who was behind Al Qaeda or who was behind, some massacre that's happening somewhere in some part of the world, you could just take them out. And that's where it gets a little bit gray. I think when we talk about it like that, we're starting to get into the proximal life thing.
Yeah, the life that's closest to you is the one that you have the duty to
And one
preserve.
of them that might be close to you would be one that you can philosophically support. Like if there's a group of school kids, philosophically, within my philosophy, my value system, they have the right to exist and to be freely living and breathing and taking up space and unmolested in every way that word means, right? So if there's a person that's overstepping the boundary, if they're crossing the line and they're asserting themselves in a way that's violent in any way, shape, or form, to the group that has the inability to defend themselves, they've become fair game in a way, in my philosophy. I don't like the idea of killing them, but if I were in a position where that were the only choice and I couldn't get help, then I certainly would. I mean, if I was literally sitting behind a scoped telescope and I knew for a fact that I wouldn't be able to get any help, and I had the capacity to pull that trigger safely and keep those kids safe, I would probably do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I would feel good. It doesn't mean that I would feel that it was easy to do.
Yeah,
I'd probably have a lot of digesting the difficulty of taking another person's life. That would be a difficult thing to swallow. But I guess I would be willing to swallow that poison for the benefit of those who were benefiting from it.
Yeah, that's great. I like the way you answered that. Because there is a time, like for example, if a person, whether a person takes the life of an animal in order to eat, or takes the life of a plant in order to eat, still that thing does have the signs of life, according to biology, how biology might define life, and we are
maybe even consciousness,
according
to the research these days.
Yeah, and we have to make a choice to end that life form, at least in the way that it existed, right, in order to preserve our own life, right? Then it seems to me that there should also be some other rules too, like if you realize that in order to protect your own proximal life, like eating a meal or saving your children from a wolf, okay, whatever it is, it's the same thing. It's just a matter of degree, and acuteness, if we are to end a life in order to preserve our own or life that's close to us, then it seems that we also have the duty of not creating suffering. So like there's life and then there's the experience of dying, And it seems to me that there is an important duty to, mitigate suffering, which I know that most people would say that. Most people would say, yeah, if you're going to slaughter a cow, do it as humanely as you can, right? Yeah. And I would often, I grew up a vegetarian, and so I had a lot of ideas about this, but they weren't necessarily my ideas. They were ideas that were imported into my brain. And if you really look at life, life has chosen to allow life to end other lives in order to continue. This is a fact, at least in this particular world that we live. Yeah.
I'm getting very Lion King on me right now.
Yeah. And it is often, at least from the human perspective, it is often not kind. Things getting ripped apart and, injected with venoms and, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if we perceive ourselves as beings that are evolving more. I mean, whatever this is, the idea from the book Shantaram of moving towards an ultimate complexity, right? That at least we can agree on that the universe is moving towards some kind of ultimate complexity. We are pretty complex as far as creatures are on Earth. So with this idea, seems appropriate that we would then have the next level of authority and responsibility to try to relieve as much suffering as we can, so.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, we're the apex predators as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of heavy.
It's a big responsibility.
It is. Yeah. We were talking about polar bears last night.
Yeah.
And they are apex predators as well. But we are even more dangerous than the polar bears.
Oh, yeah.
There really isn't anything more dangerous than us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you could argue that mosquitoes are, but
sure,
because they carry disease and all that kind of stuff. But
they can't plan worth a darn. So
they have difficulty with that.
Yeah, they can't get organized.
No.
Have you seen them? They swarm. They don't even fly in single file.
Exactly, and they probably don't match their socks with their underwear.
Oh, definitely. They don't even wear underwear. Yeah.
So, savages. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a responsibility. I mean, we have this ability to have compassion. I don't know. I was thinking about this a lot over the last week. I don't know that any other animal has a capacity for compassion. I think other animals have the capacity for empathy, no doubt. I think dogs, cats, monkeys, elephants, and they have intelligence for sure, and consciousness and theory of mind and things like that. I don't know that they have compassion, though, at least not as I understand compassion. Compassion seems to involve needing to have a really in-depth and layered understanding about how things work. I don't really see that that's the case with, even when you see incredible examples of animals having an understanding of some kind, it's never really quite to the level of complexity that I think compassion would require. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Certainly there are lots of videos of animals in nature engaging in acts that appear like compassion, or at least empathy, like you were saying.
Yeah, more empathy.
Yeah.
Care, love. I think they feel love.
Yeah, they definitely feel love. I know, just me being an animal lover, I know that my pets love me and I love them.
Yeah.
And
they're bonded, they care. They would feel distressed if you're not feeling well.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Confused, distressed. They might try to do something for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They love me and they want me to be
worried.
happy.
Yeah, they get anxious.
I've seen them be worried about me. I've seen them recognize that I was upset, and they took it upon themselves to cheer me up. And it took me a while to realize that that's what they were trying to do.
Yep.
That's happened many, many times. But yeah, to get into your question, like, what do I think about animals having compassion or not? Yeah, I think compassion requires more steps in the thinking process.
Yeah, like I was just thinking, self-sacrifice. Well, animals will sacrifice themselves, but it seems that there are other reasons why they might be doing that than compassion. Like, the instinct, like they're not necessarily thinking of what the next piece will be after they lunge to get the person and they end up dying.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily have an idea that they're going to die necessarily. They're just seeing an intruder and going for it.
Right.
Because they realize that they care about the results, but they don't necessarily know what the results will be.
Right.
A human is very good at predicting results, and so we know that if we lunge at a person with a knife that we could die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not about territorialism for us, it's about a decision.
Correct.
Some of us, will cripple in fear and become like, shriveled into a little ball and do whatever they say and try to run away. And some will just become very aggressive. And some will make a choice to be brave and just try to stay alive, knowing that they might not and probably won't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because they care, they can't. They've decided that they cannot live with themselves having done nothing.
Right. Yeah. And we love stories like that. So many movies are like that, where the captain of the spacecraft sacrifices himself for the good of the earth. And we all find nobility in that.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was that Star Trek 3 or 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
Spock. Yeah. It's great.
It's funny.
I remember crying during that scene, by the way, when he's in the nuclear reactor after saving the Enterprise, and he's putting his hands on the glass. He's like, Jim, and he's dying. He puts his hands on the glass. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but for him, it wasn't compassion; it was logic. It was just total logic.
It was a logical choice.
Logic, Captain.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That's interesting that you put it that way, because I think that compassion is logical.
Yeah, I do too.
And so I feel that what Spock was he was really attempting to be compassionate rather than empathetic.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I see what you mean with that.
It wasn't just I think people try to paint the picture of Spock as cold, especially because Bones, right?
Yeah,
the doctor, the ship's doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
Spock, you green-skinned, blue-blooded, pointy-eared hobgoblin. He would say things like that to him. He would just
super emotional.
Yeah, super emotional. But and he definitely represents the heart of the show, and Spock represents the mind of the show, probably. Yeah. But there's I see him as much more layered than that. Like,
I do too.
Not only because he's half human, but also because I think that the intention. We're getting all geeky with this Star Trek stuff right now, but in Vulcan tradition, according to the storyline, they were extremely passionate, and they had to.
That's right.
It almost destroyed them as a culture, as a race of beings.
Yeah, totally.
And so they learned the methods of training their mind and harnessing their philosophy. Became Stoic, basically.
Yeah.
Very much like the Stoics, kind of modeled after that idea. So they refined themselves to not allow their passions to destroy them. And so they have great capacity to feel, even greater than humans in some ways. and it wasn't until that great philosopher on Vulcan that kind of transformed the planet into more of an orderly place.
Yeah.
And they had all these complex rituals and things to develop their mind and things because they wanted to balance out the great passions that they had. So it's a lot more layered than people realize.
Yeah, it's like the Vulcans had two left brains, you know, but there's still that hint of a right brain deep inside there, you know. Yeah. I've always looked at the relationship between Spock, Bones, and Kirk as being like Bones is the id, and Spock is the super ego, and Kirk was the ego in between, balancing the id and the super ego. You know, it's just kind of a fun little.
Yeah.
At least I did that in my own mind when I'm watching the episodes. You know.
You've been listening to The Authenticity Show with your hosts, Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Please subscribe to The Authenticity Show wherever you get your podcasts, connect with us on social media, and you can find our website at authenticityshow.com. Thank you for listening, and have an authentic day.